Hello there. We're about 6.5 months out now from the general election, which feels kind of scaringly close. And you'll notice that with our mainstream media that they've got a couple of different fronts that they need to deal with. First of all, there's politicians and politicking. People who they want to get you out there to vote. So you'll start seeing their media bias really shine through, particularly from those ones that are determined to push something like a Luxon Seymour anti-Wonder Twins kind of government. Ugh, it's a scary thought. But this year, mainstream media has another front that they have to deal with. And we're really starting to see that come through in terms of how our mainstream media, particularly this weekend, has dealt with that. That is disinformation. Now, you might have noticed that there was actually quite a bit about disinformation over this weekend that came out through our mainstream media. First of all, there was this story from RNZ, which was shared on Stuff and News Hub and TVNZ, and all of the mainstream media outlets kind of carried something along the same lines, which basically pointed out that it's a real risk when it comes to this year's general election, not only in terms of the type of disinformation that's out there and the messaging that's going to go with it and the reasons behind it, but how that could actually turn into physical threats against politicians and people putting their names forward, which is not something that we as a country have ever experienced and really aren't prepared for. The other thing that's starting to come out now is more work like this that's focusing on specific providers of disinformation. Chantal Baker, as it says in the story, is one of the 12 most productive disinformation providers in the country. And there's a whole bunch in here, disproving some of the stuff that she's said over the years and pointing out little things like people should have the right to want to unalive Jacinda. Terrible people. But that means that our mainstream media is focusing on two fronts this election instead of the usual one, which is politicians wanting to get their message across or mainstream media wanting to get the politicians' messages across. It's something to be really aware of. So keep an eye out for disinformation that's out there and learn to sort of pick up on what exactly it is that they're saying and what the messages are that they're trying to get across and how to work out what disinformation is actually disinformation, because some of it can be really quite good at deceiving people. So always make sure that you check the sources that it's coming from, that it's coming from somewhere reputable that has to deal with things like broadcasting standards or the Media Council, or that it comes from a reliable source that you can trust. Don't just assume something that you see on Facebook is correct, because that's not good. Also remember that there's a group of people out there who are always going to be angrily dissatisfied with the government and see National and Labour as they put it, two wings on the same bird. It's not about whether or not you vote National or Labour. It's about whether or not you vote for somebody you can trust versus somebody that is completely insane and wants to ruin the country. So yeah, keep an eye out for disinformation and learn to pick up on those little prompts that kind of point out exactly how bad disinformation can be, so that you're going into this year's election cycle as informed as possible, so your vote can be as informed as possible.